Hi there, I'm Katie. I'm part of the Children and Youth Work team at the Diocese of London, and it's such a joy to be able to join you this morning in this way. Isn't it fun? I'm really excited to join you and talk a little bit about the topic of investing in children. This is something that I'm incredibly passionate about, and I'm excited to talk to you about this morning. A little bit about me before I start and delve into this topic. I am a children's pastor by trade. I've worked in children's ministry in the church for most of the last 10 years. My degree's in children's ministry, and I've worked in a number of different contexts, from Bristol, North London and Central London, before working in this role in the diocese. And I get to see lots of different churches from across the diocese, seeing what they're doing with their children and families, and I love it. It's really good fun, and yeah, being able to join you today is part of the joy of what I get to call my job. So thanks for inviting me. So investing in our children. It's a big topic, and it's something that I'm just going to scratch the surface of today, but I want to talk a little bit about biblical context for investing in our children. Why is that important? Why is that something that we should be working on and trying to do more? I want to leave you with a couple of hints and tips, and hopefully alleviate any pressure that you might be feeling. Whether you're a parent or a member of the church, we all have a part to play in investing in children's faith. I am going to be talking specifically to parents at a couple of points, but a lot of what I'm saying is going to be applicable to wherever you are at in the church family. If you have children of your own, if you're single, if you're whatever category you might be in. I don't have children myself, but there are lots of these things that I live out and try to do within the context of my church family. I want to give you a few stats just to start with, just to sort of get us thinking about the importance of equipping ourselves, particularly equipping parents in raising children in faith. Now, obviously, we can easily imagine and think and see the church as the sort of professional Christians, the people who are trained in that, the people who are equipped to talk to our children about faith. I was a children's pastor for a long time, and I really value and love that responsibility, but I also very much want to work with parents. I'd very much want it to be a collaborative effort to work together to see children raised in faith. If we think about it practically, the church might have, say, between 50 and 100, maybe 150 hours with a child over a year, if you have, depending how many hours your Sunday services run for. Compare that to the thousands of hours that parents would have with their children. It's hard to compare them, isn't it? They're very different, and the impact and the scope of influence that a parent is going to have on their child is much greater. But don't hear that with a bunch of pressure. Don't hear that with the gosh, I need to do so much more if you are a parent. That is not at all what I'm saying, and hopefully a bit of what I'm going to say now will help alleviate some of that pressure. Deuteronomy 6. And this is at the point in the story of God's people where they've come through the desert, they have travelled for those 40 years through that desert, and they are about to go into the promised land, and Moses is there. He's giving them this pep talk. He's wanting to speak life and encouragement into them as they enter into this promised land, as they enter into what God has been speaking to them about for 40 years. What I love about this passage is that Moses is saying, do it in everyday life. Talk about your faith, talk about the story of God in everyday life. Yes, the high days and holidays are important, and there are occasions, there are moments and stories to tell in those contexts, but it's as important, if not more important, to talk about them within the everyday, as you're sitting, as you're standing, as you're lying down, as you're getting up. It doesn't need to be a big, extravagant occasion that sets the scene for talking about God's goodness. He talks about it in such a simple way, and I think that's something that alleviates pressure for me, and I hope it does for you too. He's calling those people to think back on those 40 years that they have had in the desert, and the probably hundreds of stories that they had of God's provision, of God's protection, of him showing up. Think of manna appearing each morning. Think of a rock being struck and water appearing. Of the tower of cloud and of fire that led them by day and by night on their journey. These are just a few of the stories they would have been able to tell their children of the faithfulness of God in that time. And I'm sure you have stories of how God has impacted your life. It might not be that you've seen a tower of fire, I know I haven't, but we all have stories. When we have known God, when we have encountered him and come to know him, we have stories of how he has impacted our lives, how he has changed us and transformed us more into his likeness. And these are the stories that you can share with your children. These are the stories that you can share with the people in your community, whatever their age. Moses here is encouraging the people of God, the Israelites, to intertwine the stories of God into the mundane, into the ordinary things of life. I hope that this alleviates any pressure that you might feel, that it takes off any burden that you feel you need to have the perfect answer, you need to have that perfect theology all set up before you share with your children. Part of the joy of faith and of journeying with God is that we get it wrong, that we are all figuring this thing out as we go. And being authentic and being real with our children is so important to help them understand faith and faith development and growing in their own faith. I was lucky enough to be raised in a Christian family and was part of an amazing church community, and I know for me, seeing my parents' faith and seeing the other adults in my life and how their faith impacted them was hugely informative and hugely powerful in my personal faith formation. Seeing how the word of God impacted their lives, seeing how prayer really made a difference in the things that they were living out, seeing how knowing the goodness and faithfulness of God in their hearts gave them boldness and courage to do things that they might not otherwise have done. That in turn raised those things in me. And those are things that I would say now are like part of my core beliefs, because I've seen them lived out by those people that I love and respect in my church family. That increased my faith, that increased my boldness, my understanding of those things and how God could move. And so now they are fruit in my life as well. There's an organisation called the Kitchen Table Project, which has recognised 5 barriers that parents often face in developing and investing in their children's faith. And I want to say them as to help you release that pressure even more. These are things that parents and probably anyone working with children might have felt. And so I hope this is helpful. The first one is not having enough time to spend with your children. We're busy, there's lots going on in life, and even in lockdown you might feel that's the case as well. There's lots of different things that can distract us. Number 2, family time devoted to other activities. Similarly, there could be lots of different things that you want to do, and church might just sort of fall, or faith development might just sort of fall to the side. Number 3, needing help to know what to do. Just not feeling confident in what you have to bring. Number 4, being worried about getting it wrong. And number 5, not feeling like you're a good enough example of faith in yourself to model it to your children. All of these things are incredibly legitimate. Hope you feel like in saying them you might relate to some or all of them, and that is so okay. That is so okay, and really important to recognise, like, that's normal. That is really normal, and you are not alone in experiencing those things. But I also want to encourage you that these things do not need to be barriers. It's legit that you feel them, and that is okay. But they can be things that you get over, that you move through. And I want to talk about 5 other things that the Kitchen Table Project talk about that can hopefully overcome and help build confidence in these areas. These are 5 principles that can help you in building that confidence in yourself, that hopefully simplify ways that you can empower and equip your children in faith. So the first, and I think the most important, is home. The space that you're creating in your home, the love, the acceptance that you are giving your children. And if you're just an adult in the church, just even creating that space in your church community is really powerful. Creating that space where they feel loved and welcomed is going to go real far. Number 2 is being real, like we've already talked about, that sense of being authentic. You do not need to be the expert. You do not need to have all the answers. And sharing that authentic experience of faith with your children is going to be really powerful and help them recognise that actually they don't need to have all the answers either. They can figure it out as they go as well. Number 3, being intentional. Finding ways to bring God into everyday life, just as Moses has encouraged us. It's an everyday thing, it's intertwining things, intertwining the story of God into our everyday lives. It can be a comment here or a moment of recognising God's goodness there. Number 4 is belonging, and you're doing that by watching this, by turning up, by joining in this way, helping your children see that they're part of something bigger, that they facilitating that space where they feel part and belonging in the broader church family. Number 5 is prayer. And prayer can feel like this burden that we need to do every day, but I want to encourage you that it doesn't need to be like that. It can be this joyful thing, this thing where we are just having a conversation with God. Before I say goodbye, I want to leave you with a few practical things that you could take home today and start. You might want to start a pattern of prayer. As we said, prayer can be this big thing, but it doesn't need to be. It can be simply saying thank you to God for your food as you sit down to eat a meal. It can be saying thank you to God for what you have done in that day as you say goodnight to your children. I know a family who every day of the week they pray for a different people group. So one day it's their family, one day it's school friends, one day it's church friends, that sort of thing. They break up their sort of circle of friends into different days of the week, and every day they pray for those people. They ask for God's blessing on them, and if they know specific things that those families or those friends need prayer for, then they will pray into them. That's a simple way, a simple thing that you can do with your family that cultivate that rhythm of prayer. Finally, something that I've already touched on is the power of story. I want to encourage you that your story is powerful. However God has met you or is meeting you wherever you are at on the journey of faith, of getting to know God, what he has done in your life is powerful. And sharing that with your children, with the people around you, is powerful. Letting your children know that actually when you read this passage in scripture, this is how God spoke to you. That's going to help them see a window into your relationship with God and help them have understanding on what a relationship with God looks like. It could be that you prayed and you saw God answer that prayer. Share that with your children. Tell them about the good things that he has done in your life. And I pray that as we have talked about all of these things, that you would feel a joy and a lightness in all of it, because these things aren't heavy, these things aren't weighted. We want children to be raised in faith, yes, but if you don't feel like you can do it by yourself, that's where the church family gets to step in and we get to work together. So ask for help. Ask for encouragement. Tell your story and tell the story of where things have gone wrong as much as the things that have gone right. Because that's how we work together, that's how we can encourage one another in our church families. So I bless you, I pray that this has been helpful, and I pray that you would continue to grow in faith and that you would continue to be a church that prioritises family and looks after those in your community. Bless you.
Thank you, Katie, so much for that. It's hard being a parent. It's a real privilege, but lots of challenges. And so we really appreciate the time that you took there to record that message for us and for the gems within it. That was great. And now we've got Risha, and she's going to be speaking to us specifically about what is going on in the church for our children and how we can support them. So thank you. Over to you, Risha.
Go for it, Risha. Here at the heart of children's ministry, we want to make sure that all children knows that Jesus Christ is their best friend and throughout their life. And one of the way that we do that is by creating a free, fun, and safe space for children to be able to experience and begin to develop a strong relationship with God. And Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 1 to 7 signifies the commandments to love God so that the blessing will transfer from one generation to next generation. The verses that particularly strikes me is verse 2 and 3, and I'm going to read that for you. So that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord your God as long as you live, by keeping all his decrees and commands and that I give you, and so that you may enjoy a long life. Verse 3 says, hear, Israel, and be careful to obey, so that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in a land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestor, promised you. As a children's pastor here at the church, and on behalf of the whole children's team, I want to come alongside with you as a parents and want to help support you to fulfill this great commandment that God has entrusted to you. And that is simply to transfer the biblical heritage from one generation to next generation. What a blessing it is, guys. Yes, it is true that God has called us to lead our families, and the way that we do that is by showing a godly role model, so that the families are inspired to love God more. Here's some few resources that I've come up with, guys, and I hope that this will be handy as you begin to intentionally create an environment and a place for you and your family where Jesus is the center of your household. And so I'm just going to begin to show you. So this is book number 1 for you guys to take away, is my first hands-on Bible. This is very good for preschool and primary school. It is a pretend and play Bible. You can actually use your household items to be able to kind of create an environment and just retell the biblical story through pretend and play. I highly recommend this, and I have amazing time playing, being some biblical characters together and just having lots of fun with my little ones. So highly recommend this one. Book number 2 is the parenting book by Nikki and Salali. They are an amazing couple, and I think they've just put on so much in this book. They've put on the whole experience as a parent in this book, and I highly recommend this. This is not only a book, but rather a manual, should I say. There's tons to learn, and I highly recommend, if you're a parent, just to get this book. Last but not the least, who has grown up playing board games? Almost everybody has this. There's something nostalgic about just playing board game with a family. I particularly remember playing Chinese checker with my father, growing up, and I still remember it. And here's one for you up in my sleeves, guys, and I just wanted to show you that, guys, we have amazing Christian board games. Why didn't you invest one of these? This is one of my favorite board game. Let's just create memories by playing Christian board games, and I highly recommend this one. This one is a bit of an investment, but I hope that this will help you as you just spend family time together with your loved ones. I highly recommend you, please set aside some time for your family. When your children grows up, they will value it. They will reflect back these memories and cherish it. We all want to grow in our communication skill as a parents, and one of the areas that I am passionate about is just to do that, to communicate well. And recently I have been using Giants communication based leadership program with my parents. I've been training them, guys, so if you want to know more about it, do let me know. I truly believe that a community that chooses to support and empower godly families turns out to have a strong arrow for our future generation. We as a church has a huge opportunity and responsibility to be able to come around the families and support them. And one of the most powerful way that we can do is by praying for them, pray for their spiritual and physical need. Now, if you wish to join the children ministry, you can do so. And there are varieties of ways that you can support children's ministry. If you want to know more about it, do let me know again. At this point, I really want to shout out to all of my children's volunteers and leaders and teachers who have been facilitating during this crisis, even during this crisis, with biblical stories and activities craft together every Sunday. So I really want to thank you for their commitment during this time. I also want to thank them because as a church, safeguarding children and volunteers is a huge thing for us. And thank you again for continuing to update the DBSs and just following up with the trainings. Finally, if you wish to have your child join one of our Sunday session group, if you have any questions regarding how to volunteer or any Giants materials, or any resources that I have spoken to you earlier regarding discipling your child and creating a space where they grow, where Jesus Christ is the center of your life, please do let me know by emailing me at risha@hdhounslow.org.uk. Me and my family sends you continual prayer and love. Stay safe. God bless you.